You thought I was going to walk in, but I didn't. We're back. This is ABB News, Abdullah Broadcast, and this is our, second season, but at the same time, we're going to change things up, so get ready to enjoy this episode. So, because we're changing things up, instead of going right into the featured story, I'm going to go into an In Case You Missed It story. It's an article that relates to something that happened that was actually good for the world. And so today's article has to do with the Institute of Singapore and solar panels. Carlos Rodriguez Gallegos, with the help of his colleagues, have actually been able to create double-sided solar panels that use an axle to help it become double-sided, of course. Now you might be wondering, what's the point of having a double-sided solar panel? Well, this apparently is actually able to create more energy for a cheaper price. With these double-sided solar panels, they use dual axis trackers that help to track the sun's location over the course of a year. Because the sun changes location from summer to winter, these dual axis trackers with the double-sided solar panels are actually able to harness more energy than ever before. In fact, they're able to harness 35% more energy and at the same time reducing the cost of electricity on average by 16%. And now, before we get to our featured story, a commercial break. Now, you might be wondering, hey Abdullah, aren't your shoulders a little too high? Well, yeah, I have a really bad hunchback and I like to keep my shoulders like this. But you know what's helped me to get rid of all these things? The MRAW, the Multi-Purpose Restoration Adjustment. Now what you might be wondering is, hey, MRAW sounds kind of like man bra. Well, it's not. So just listen. What I do is I basically put this on like a backpack, and then voila, my shoulders are not as high up like this. They actually force my shoulders to go down, and now I could actually even stretch my shoulders out and make sure that I have good posture. Now you might be wondering, where could I buy this thing? I don't know. I got it as a gift. I guess this isn't really much of a commercial, but a thing that I have. Anyways, back to our featured story. And now onto our featured story, where I'm going to do it a little differently this time. The featured story, unfortunately, has to revolve around the execution of George Floyd under 4 cops. It's kind of invoked protests all over the world, and especially in all 50 states in the United States. This is one of the first times in history that all 50 states have actually protested for the same cause. In fact, it's gotten people like the Amish. The last time you've heard of the Amish were probably a weird TLC show that was gonna air and you were kind of slightly interested. But even the Amish, people who do not have electricity, who do not live with electricity, know that there is something wrong systemically with the police system in the United States. And if you've been living under a bunker or slowly going down an escalator or stairs or wherever that thing was, you have been kind of turning a blind eye into this kind of systemic racist situation. And for me, it's been very difficult to kind of absorb because I've been trying to kind of assess all the information and all the data because it's been a lot. This is one of the problems I find with social media, that we've kind of become overwhelmed with a lot of information at once and we don't know how to express ourselves. We kind of quickly state something and then we might have to retract from it. So I tried to take a lot of time to kind of assess, analyze, and just look over the entire situation. But what I'm going to really analyze is Sesame Street. Yeah, you might not realize this because a lot of information and a lot of news coverage has been going on, but Sesame Street actually had a town hall. I mean, if there was any show to kind of do a town hall on this issue of systemic racism and policing, it should have been Paw Patrol, but the pups gotta do what the pups gotta do, I guess. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna really dive into what Elmo and his father, Louis, talked about. CNN Anti-Racism Town Hall was a great way to kind of look into the household and just kind of address these issues, ask the questions that need to be asked, and try to give a sound response. Although Louis didn't really see Elmo, and I never really heard of Louis until these past weeks actually, it's kind of really eye-opening to kind of see what is going on in the household, because
some people don't know why people are protesting, believe it or not. And there might be people who are young and impressionable who might be wondering, why are people protesting? And Louis' father actually gives a good enough reason, simplifying it, but at the same time kind of bringing up the topic an issue that has been problematic and that can't be put off to the side anymore. Because we need to address racism, and we have to do it, I think, first in the household. It's very telling to those who are kind of wondering what racist problem. It feels as though you haven't really looked into the issue, and it feels as though you have just kind of been sheltered to this issue of systemic racism. And it's difficult because sometimes it's not your fault. It might be the fault of the education system or your parents not educating you enough on the issues of today's hand. It's difficult, I know, and I think now the onus is on you. If you do not feel this racism, if you do not feel as though you've been kind of forced to change your identity into a certain mold in order to benefit from society, look into why that's the case, and look into yourself, and I think reflecting actually is a really good method. And it's difficult because we're all kind of stuck here in Corona, and Corona's made us kind of stay and not really go out and venture and talk. But at the same time, we have protests, and it goes to show how problematic the situation is that people are willing to go and protest in a pandemic. I found for myself what was problematic for me when I was growing up is I became desensitized to the fact that I wanted to kind of fit into this identity of being quote unquote white by listening to rock music and doing stereotypically white things. And I took some time to actually reflect on that and kind of address that to myself and realize what was causing me to live this kind of way. So for me, this is just something personal, I think, that I've realized about myself, and now I'm trying to kind of change my identity and kind of embrace who I am. I used to avoid actually sharing my name a lot. One, I was kind of paranoid because I didn't want a lot of people to know me. That's fair enough. But the second thing was that it was just easier, that if I changed my name from Abdullah to like Alex, for example, it'd be easier for people to spell, it'd be easier for people to pronounce, it'd be easier for just a bunch of things, and I found that it was more convenient. And now, as I'm reflecting, I'm wondering, why did I think it would be more convenient to fit into a mold and a stereotype? And that's something just personal for me that I wanted to share with everyone here. And I think one quote that encapsulates all of this, I'm going to paraphrase it, I'll have it in the description, but we are all morally responsible to make society not only stagnant, but a better place for the next generation. And I think that helps us to kind of see what this impact of these protests are. Why I shared the Sesame Street video was because it was a good way to indicate how we should start these conversations, that children are curious, and that we as parents, as role models, as people in society, owe it to them to not only make society stagnant, but a better place for them. Thank you. That's been a lot, but we'll stick to tradition and we'll always have our pun of the day. So now, on to the pun of the day. Today's pun of the day is, there's only one vampire in Sesame Street. Well, one that actually counts. Don't forget to like this video. Feel free to share it with your friends. And I hope to see you next week for another segment on ABB News.